Hello and welcome to episode 155 of PubShorts. We are calling it a design for life. I definitely need a design for my own very life, considering that Claude Code has taken over it over my life. But anyway, so we'll talk about this some other day. My name is Dr. KK, and I'm the innovation officer at Inago. And Tony, who is Claude Code untouched so far, is beaming. Probably he has a design for his own life. Hi, Tony.
That's because I haven't been using Claude Code to the extent I should be. Okay, yes, everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to PubShorts, which is KK and I's regular conversation around stories affecting the world of research, scholarly communication. And we like to give every episode a theme and link that theme to a song. This episode's no different. And today's episode is called A Design for Life. Those of you who familiar with English pop music from the 1990s, will know the song by the Manic Street Preachers. I can't believe that song's 30 years old. It's still a new band in my mind.
Yeah.
The song opens with the line, libraries gave us power. Peer review is that foundational structure.
Mm-hmm.
And this week we examine what happens when the design cracks, feedback loops that degrade review quality, AI reshaping how manuscripts get assessed, and whether the system can be rebuilt on better foundations and a new design on academic life.
I still have, I'm in awe of all the things that you bring the episode together, all the
It's
themes.
amazing, isn't it?
It's incredible. So the first story that we are talking about peer review itself, a peer review who done it. Was it AI after all? It's a working paper, 13th published 13 February. So the paper discusses the controversy surrounding AI generated or assisted peer reviews in publishing, and it highlights the potential impact of on scientific integrity. So publishers are seeing a shortage of reviewers and a surge in papers due to AI. So this is the abstract. All of this is what I'm sort of summarizing. And some publishers are allowing authors to use AI for review support. Authors in the sense they are asking authors to sort of review their papers themselves. A key concern is that AI can generate false information or be manipulated using prompts, and authors need transparency about AI use in reviews. I mean, in the sense, we should, if suppose a publisher is using AI in the context of review internally, then that should be communicated with the authors. That's a sort of key point that I picked up. Currently, the AI used in the context of peer review may not be communicated with authors, and so a case study revealed that both AI detection tools and generative AI models can make mistakes, and these are both are equally prone to incorrect conclusions. So the authors of the paper suggest that publishers must be more vigilant, as they currently appear not to be, and editors need to strengthen their role as referees in terms of finding reviewers as well. So what are your thoughts? I mean, in the sense, is there a responsibility among publishers or for publishers and reviewers to disclose their maybe AI assisted reviews or screenings to authors? What do you think?
Absolutely, there needs to be transparency across every aspect of the review process. Whether you know, this highlights me the complexity of peer review in terms of you have on the one hand authors are saying I need anonymous peer review to remove that bias, but on the other hand I want the anonymous reviewer to be transparent and open about what they've done to create their review. So there has to be that kind of managed transparency throughout the entire process. And by the way, if you don't know, the organisation behind this piece of research, or at least that's been involved in this research, is Cyber Research, and they've done some fantastic research over the last 20 years.
Right.
I think they came out of the University of London, I believe, a long time ago. So no, but David Nicholas and his colleagues do some really amazing work.
Yep. All right, moving on to another peer review related story, another ICLR related story, an article from Nature, a large scale randomized study of large language model feedback in peer review. And so I'm just reading out my notes. So ICLR is a big conference in 2025. Looked at over 20,000 reviews, and turns out when reviewers got AI suggestions, they were more likely to change their reviews. And the AI system helped reviewers by pointing out unclear parts, misunderstandings, or impolite comments. About 27% of reviewers who got this AI help actually updated their reviews using thousands of the suggestions provided by AI. And the reviews that were updated with AI feedback were judged to be better and more informative. And reviewers also wrote longer reviews, and the back and forth, the communication between the authors and the reviewers during the rebuttal phase also became more detailed because of the assistance. I mean, this is the power of AI. I mean, if it's used, is deployed in a responsible manner, I think the review process stands to gain a lot from this. And this is what basically this way. I mean, you can call it confirmation bias, but I'm very pro assistance of AI assistance
Yeah.
in peer review. So, what are your thoughts after reviewing the findings from this paper?
Oh, I'm very pro AI assistance as well. I mean, there is a clear need at the moment, and I think it's not going to go away. To expedite the peer review process, for peer review to happen quicker than it has been happening, and to give give researchers that opportunity to have their paper assessed quickly, fairly, openly, without bias. And I think AI has a role to play there. So I'm encouraged that the percentage of authors that made changes was so high, and I think that's only going to increase.
Right. Moving on to a related story. It's a sort of the other side of peer review, the volume overload. And so this is a mathematical modeling based sort of research. It is published in PLOS Biology, Screening, Sorting, and the Feedback Cycles at Imperil Peer Review. So once again, it's a mathematical modeling paper. The core finding is that the self-reinforcing loop of volume leading to lower quality. So most submissions overwhelm reviewer pools. Overwhelmed pools produce lower quality reviews. Lower quality reviews make it rational for more authors to try ambitious venues, which suggests eventually more submissions. Eventually, that this entire loop is sort of working is the thing. So the two structural features make the cycle hard to break. First, peer review partially reveals authors' private assessments of their own work. In the sense, if authors are authors are eventually peer reviewers after all. Researchers, peers are doing the reviews, and then authors use submission decisions strategically. So because of this, and journals do not pay for peer review, so that's also considered as a sort of second structural problem. And preprint servers, as per this research or mathematical modeling paper, have inadvertently made things worse in the sense, they offer a lot of chance for publication. Maybe not the highest quality papers. All of them do not deserve to be accepted even for a preprint submission. So another point that is made is the email aspect of communication, and it has eroded the social contact, and a handwritten invitation from an editor felt like a genuine request for an expert opinion back in the day. I guess back in the noughties, I suppose, and everything is automated, and you lose it's sort of a social human touch as well, which is something that I think I brought up in the scholarly kitchen article that I wrote a few weeks ago. The welfare analysis also sort of talked about. As review loads increase, authors and reviewers both lose. Readers actually benefit from more selective competition between journals as well. So a lot of interesting things. Remember that it's sort of a hypothetical mathematical modeling paper. But what are your thoughts in terms of all of these things that are in play, like including maybe reviewer compensation as well as the incentives for authors to sort of submit to different journals based on all the dynamics of the publishing industry as things stand?
Well, yeah, the the industry hasn't really changed in 350 years. The expectation is if I receive a paper for peer review consideration, then I'm the only one that's going to receive a paper for peer review consideration, and therefore the investment I need to make as a publisher in terms of receiving the paper, screening the paper, getting the paper reviewed, and then then hopefully publishing that paper can be quite significant.
Yeah.
But if that paper is going out to 5 or 6 different journals at the same time, what possible assurance do you have that that paper's going to be unique? Where do you associate the DOI, for example? If papers should get submitted to 6 different journals and 2 accept that paper, it's the publisher's responsibility then to generate the DOI. I don't know. I think there are all sorts of flaws. But again, this is another story which we talked about this in the previous episode,
right,
about the need to reduce the volume of submissions that some publishers are looking to do to find ways to screen poor content, and these models, I think, reinforce that.
Right, and I think the next story, Tony, is probably the most sort of interesting thing that I have seen in the last few months in terms of a new sort of publishing sort of journal. So have you heard of this pop-up journal thing that has popped up in our in our inboxes in the last couple of weeks? So this is a Nature Index story. Pop-up journals for policy research can temporary titles deliver answer. So the idea is obviously temporary journals, not that will stand the test of, let's say, decades of test of time. And so these are focused on a single policy question that run for a few years. In the sense, the journal will itself last only for a few years until that policy question is sort of answered. And there is apparently lots of funding. The Keating Foundation, I think, has funded about 1 million, I think. Yeah, Sloan Foundation and another foundation, 1 million funding. And there are two separate funding streams, as mentioned in the article. One goes to organizations that run the journals, and the other goes to researchers who want to submit their studies. And so this is the whole idea behind the funders is as they explain, is that these journals are less focused on topics than in questions. Less focused in topics. As opposed to, let's say, Nature Medicine or Nature, I don't know, Oncology would be focused on oncology. This is more focused on a particular research question, and it is less aimed at publishing and more at curation. I mean, these are sort of the guidelines that they are giving us as to what these pop-up journals, how are they different from standard journals. And the first journal is already planned. It will focus on R&D investment and returns, and how much economic growth does research and development spending actually generate. And it's a question that comes up in I guess, US Congress regularly and has never had a clean answer. So, my question to you is this: would researchers be incentivized to submit to these pop-up journals, when obviously they won't be indexed like how the classical journals are, and they won't have the impact factors and all of that? So, what are your thoughts on it? And I don't even know what happens when they sort of go out of circulation, or they go out of print, whatever that equivalent is for digital versions of this. So, what are your thoughts
Oh,
on it?
there's all sorts of challenges here. Preservation, long-term preservation rights. If this is only a pop-up journal, there's no impact factor. So what's the motivation for a researcher who's building their career? If they don't think their paper is going to be cited, perhaps there has to be different metrics. How is that paper going to be archived? Where is it going to be archived? Pop-up journals basically is a website by another name. I'm all in favour of creating relevant places for researchers to go for to identify their research or to answer research questions. Does it have to be called a journal? I mean, doesn't a journal mean something? What kind of? I mean, one of the definitions in my mind of a journal is around the community that it creates, or that is there, that reads a journal. There is a community reading a physics journal. There is a community reading a biology journal, or particular niche journals, and the community know each other. If there's no sort of attachment or association with that journal because it's there only for a very short period of time, I kind of question what the motivations would be for an author to submit to it. But what's the difference between this and, let's say, a one-time special issue of an existing journal?
Right.
It might have the link back to the main parent journal, but it's still a new one-time only object. So I say, summarize, I'm in favour of the fact that there are new novel ways of being able to bring research communication together, but all those questions around preservation and access have to be then answered.
Right. And Tony, this also might tickle your sort of brain a little. This is a new sort of an interesting meta sort of an article or an announcement by Open Archive. So versions in action, updating our preprint on preprints. So it's written by Richard Sever of bioRxiv and medRxiv, and so basically they had, as in Open Archive, bioRxiv and medRxiv had a paper published in 2019. Right, and this was about preprints, and they have updated that paper to show that Open Archive, basically Bio and medRxiv, can update, and there's version control. So that's a whole point of the preprint ecosystem as per their vision. So they've updated with findings from I think a survey, if I'm not mistaken, and also talk about the increasing submissions, roughly 100 annual submissions in 2013 to 2014 to 4,000 annual submissions by 2025, as far as I understand, a 40-fold increase in a decade. And I mean, there is something wrong with this number, is what I'm thinking. But anyway, 82% post to increase visibility, and 55% to stay priority claims. All of these are increases, and these are mentioned in the graph. And 53 to control, 53% increase in the control to dissemination timing and everything. So the one challenge that is mentioned is that the idea behind a preprint is obviously community engagement, and we talked about open peer review, community peer review, and all of that. So the commentary in the peer review community section, it is mostly in email and not available to public, and that's something that they would like to change. And the whole point of this article was that every preprint is a living document, and it can sort of change according to the updation that is required based on whatever new data they might have. Any thoughts on this? I mean, interesting to sort of discuss what preprints mean, especially in the context of Open Archive.
I think we've said this in previous episodes of PubShorts. Again, I think the preprint is only going to increase in importance over the coming months and years. There's so many measures being taken to ensure the integrity of preprints that they're and in some areas the preprint is already the dominant the dominant source. I mean, I've said this, but in areas like high energy physics, for example, people go to archive before they go anywhere else. It's the first thing they turn on, it's the last thing they turn off at night. And the journals are there simply as almost like as an archival mechanism, an archive medium. So no, I think it's an interesting piece. Richard's a very bright guy, and it reinforces to me the growth and increasing importance of preprints and the measures that preprint organisations are taking to ensure that there is considerable integrity in the process of dissemination.
All right, and the last main story that we have is an interesting one, another one. So it's titled Navigating the Uneasy Interdependence of AI and Open Science. It is a Confederation of Open Access Repositories statement. Came out earlier this month. The core argument is that AI and open science are mutually dependent, and I want your take on this. AI trains on open scholarly outputs, and open science increasingly depends on AI for processing and discovery. But the stress runs asymmetrically. AI consumes, infrastructure is paying, and there are points about attribution breaking down as LLM synthesize without sourcing. Misinformation spreads through the hallucinations and paper mill contamination and everything. And aggressive bot traffic is also bringing down these repositories. Right, we have talked about that these are some of the challenges. AI systems are often training on early preprint versions, not the version of record. That's one thing that I hadn't thought of, but it makes total sense. If suppose you have a earlier version, hosted on a repository or a preprint, and have something the post peer review version behind a sort of a paywall, then obviously AI is not going to access it. And if suppose somebody is using AI to source something, and they might not get the right one. And some repositories are blocking all machine access to survive, and that blocks legitimate indexing alongside bad bots, a cure that kills the patient, as an analogy. So what's new in the framing is that this is now an existential risk to open science, not a technical nuisance. And then that's sort of the thing all of this year, I think, in terms of us accepting that AI is there to stay, and we cannot sort of run away from
threats to open science.
Yeah, right. So, any thoughts on this, especially the first part, that they are interdependent and that it's a cycle that is unbalanced? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I've long said about I'm a fan. I'm very much in favour of institutions wanting to host their own research and to be able to demonstrate to the world openly the quality of the research that's coming out of the institution. But the problem is, as you mentioned before, what version of let's say a research paper can an institutional repository host?
Right.
And CORE is obviously the coalition of open access repositories. Publishers don't always allow the repository to host the final version of record. Okay, in other words, the citable paper. A paper can go through some very significant changes from when it's first written to when it's ultimately published. What the institution wants to ensure is that a version of the paper exists somewhere.
Right.
And very often what you see is a repository will then say, okay, look, this is an early version of the paper. If you want to see the actual version of the paper, here's a link to the full text somewhere, which may not be open access, which it may still be behind a firewall. So there is a kind of a flaw, unfortunately, within the repository mechanism in terms of how reliable, how much can I rely on this paper to be the best possible version of the paper, because unfortunately it won't always be the case.
Right. All right, Tony, without asking your permission, I'm moving on to quick hits.
Good.
Yeah. All
You
right.
have my permission.
All right. The first quick hit is a surprising announcement from two, actually. The first one is from OpenAlex, a new feature and usage based pricing. So, OpenAlex announces usage based pricing alongside new features. This is like as of last month. It basically is a was a free at all volume model, but it's now changing. API is not, because APIs are not no longer sustainable because of AI driven automated traffic, and high volume commercial users will face fees. Low volume academic users are likely to be unaffected, and but they are also giving away or if, giving access to the more advanced features like proximity search, exact matching, wildcards, and long queries. I thought it was a technical term. So thoughts on it? Quick,
Long queries.
long queries. Yeah.
Oh
What are your
yeah, yeah.
thoughts? Did you expect this to happen?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think this is inevitable. Open Alex is becoming increasingly important and useful for everyone in the ecosystem, whether a publisher or a research organization, and they need to maintain. And for the service to be maintained, there has to be some kind of sustainability and some kind of business model. So this is whether we like it or not, a reality, and which I have to support.
Right. And something that I found very interesting in the opinion that James Butcher had in the last version of Journalogy. So this one, did I? Sorry, I think I might. Yeah, this is the one. Sorry, open evidence targets users. Basically, it is. It's concerning. Let me read out. So the Kent Anderson article on, I think, the Geyser argues that Open Evidence, which is a medical AI platform for physicians, as has recently licensed Cochrane content from Wiley. It is operating at an advertising-driven business model that is structurally incompatible with trustworthy medical information delivery. So the Open Evidence is something that physicians use, and there are issues in terms of how the entire thing is monetized, and because of that, the physicians who might be depending on open evidence might get the wrong information, which is not good for science overall. That is the argument. I think I've covered it as a quick hit because it's complex. But I also recommend James Butcher's sort of analysis on this. What are your thoughts on the sort of commercial conflict of interest in the context of such application? Do you feel that it's necessary? Because I think we've had a conversation about this before. Somebody has to pay for it. There's no free lunch. You always say that. What are your thoughts on this?
It's yeah, okay. I suppose it depends on the business model behind the model itself.
Right.
If the intention behind the business model is to inform and to educate, then there has to be some kind of depth and investment
Right.
in that service. But at the same time, someone has to pay for that. Someone has to pay for that investment. Someone has to pay for that kind of infrastructure to be in place. So, should there be the facility to, for these medical LLMs to be able to find some way of compensating themselves? Well, as long as it doesn't ultimately affect the text that comes out of it, as long as it doesn't overly influence, what results I see, and then it's clear that like you did with Google, for example, that this is a sponsored result, that this is the first thing you see, then
Yeah.
I don't think I would object, but there has to be some kind of transparency
Right.
process in place.
Right. We just talked about OpenAlex going non-free, and DOAJ has now premium metadata services, which was also announced earlier this week. So
Yeah.
basically, the premium metadata services, which are launching on the 17th of March, as listed here. It's a two-tier model where the current metadata will be priced for commercial users with 1 month old data. 1 month old standard feeds remain free, and the move is driven by 412 million API requests in 2025 and escalating AI bot
Wow.
traffic
Wow. 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 Wow.
that the voluntary funding model can no longer absorb. I mean, Tony, I when I read these, I've, as I mentioned, Claude Code, and some of the things that I'm trying out are using these APIs that are available. I've not used DOAJ and OpenAlex yet, but I'm about to start exploring these things myself. And unfortunately, I'm one of the causes or the reasons for things to not go, not remain
Not the
free.
400 million API requests.
Yeah. So, thoughts on this? Again, do you expect this to happen? Considering that,
Yeah, well, not specifically about DO. I hadn't thought about it, particularly in context of DOAJ. But again, it does unfortunately highlight, one of the sad realities of open science, in that again, you've quoted me, so I'll quote myself. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Some of this has to be funded. If you want to have a sustainable, reliable, high quality source that will be of value to researchers, to anyone in the community, someone has to pay for that. And and it's not always going to be available free of charge, unfortunately. But good things aren't always free.
Yeah, good things come for people who wait, I suppose, as well. I don't know. That's
Well, yeah,
I.
and then eventually it'll be free. But then, how useful is it?
Right. Finally, wrapping up with a Clarivate, report. Research powerhouses. The top 70 institution home to highly cited researchers. It is not at all surprising. About 70 institutions account for 43.3% of all highly cited researcher, and it is
Wow.
from it's from just 3.3% of all institutions in the data set, which is incredible, mind-boggling. And the top 6 institutions collectively hold 12.1%, and you won't win prizes for guessing where the institutions are from. China and the US, but surprisingly, Australia and a bunch of universities in Australia are surprising institutions that are part of the list. So anything that sort of these are the lists. I mean, expected, but CAS, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, is the leader. But you've got interesting stuff from, I think, Australia coming out. Like, these are unexpected. Any thoughts?
Really? Oh no, gosh, absolutely not. These are world class research. University of Queensland, for example. I
Yeah.
think University of Sydney is probably higher up in that list. No, I'm not surprised at all. Those institutions, particularly those big 5 or 6 Australian universities, are absolute world class universities. With the same kind of research mechanisms and structures in place that as any Western, any university, good university in the world. Not surprised at all.
Yeah.
Maybe to see so many in the top 20 is interesting. To have or any in the top 20 is interesting, but no, not surprised at all.
Right, and University of Oxford and University College London, which I walked through. I think we walked through, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm surprised that Cambridge is so low.
Yeah.
I mean, Cambridge used to be regularly in the top 3 or top 5. But it's. I mean, the Chinese Academy of Sciences as an organisation, which has, I can't remember how many institutes attached to it, hundreds and hundreds of institutions attached to it, is the world's largest output for academic research. The organisation responsible for the largest output. We only and still probably only a fraction of those papers that are submitted get published. So no, I'm not surprised at all.
Right. What is not surprising also is the fact that we publish at least 2 PubShorts episodes every week, and we are at 155. That means that you have 154 episodes, and Tony would recommend the best quarterly year plan for covering those episodes if you haven't watched.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I should have a lot of pre-recording, which I turn on every time we talk about this. Yes. So if you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have, you'd like to see the previous 154 episodes, I encourage you to. Well, if you're watching this, you're probably watching it on YouTube anyway. But if you're not, go to YouTube, search Inago PubShorts, and you'll see all previous 154 episodes. Give yourself a couple of months to watch them. And we started about 2 years ago. No, not even 2 years ago. 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking you'll find it covers everything in the whole research ecosystem. Press that like button, hopefully, if you like it. Share it with your colleagues and do leave comments. We really look forward to hearing from you.
Right, and until the next time, and this time I'm going to be sure that I catch your bye, Tony. Until the next time, this is Dr. Kike signing off for Tony and the team that helps us bring the content to you. So, bye, Tony. We'll see you in the next one. Come on.
See you in the next one.
Bye.